If you aren't holding your team accountable, you have a 43% higher chance of turnover.
Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I'm a salon owner, educator, and mindset coach that helps hairstylists and salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career behind the chair that you love. Join us every week to learn about small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more.
During this week's podcast, we are going to be talking about something that I feel is really necessary for business success and business growth. So I like to bring topics to the podcast where I see a common struggle inside of my students' everyday lives and things that they do when it comes to running their business. So if I see a common theme inside of what I am coaching on, one, that means maybe I need to look at myself and reflect on how I am doing in this area. And two, if it's a very common thing that I'm talking about on a regular basis, it's something that everyone is struggling with. So today we're going to talk about team accountability. This is one of the things that so many salon owners struggle with, and the reason is fear. Having difficult conversations is really hard. It is so hard, but I'm here to tell you that it honestly isn't what you say, it's how you say it. So when it comes to having difficult conversations inside of your business with your team, and it comes to having conversations about the standards, the responsibility, and all of the things that are really required to uphold your business and your business reputation, can kind of suck. So when we are having these difficult conversations, it is fear that really just kind of keeps us from moving forward to really make sure that we are executing accountability in a way that is productive for us and our business and our team. So there's fear of losing your staff. There's fear of being the bad guy. There's fear of coming off as a micromanaging manager or just micromanaging in general. There is fear of upsetting somebody and fear of somebody not liking you. There's fear of maybe ruining someone's day or even just having the conversation in itself because you're not sure how the person is going to react or you don't know the right way to say it to be proactive and not reactive. So when it comes to holding your team accountable, there are so many reasons why this is crucial for a healthy business, and this is crucial for revenue success and culture success and team success. So I just want to say, I'm going to throw this out there before I move forward. If you are not 100% happy with your team, you will never attract an elevated stylist without accountability. I'm going to say that again. You will never attract an elevated stylist without accountability. Accountability is important because elevated stylists, they don't settle for anything else but elevated. And they're not going to settle for somebody else ruining their client experience by not having proper conversations. They're not going to let somebody ruin their client experience by having a messy space. They're not going to let somebody else ruin their client experience because they don't really want to dress for work or act professional. They're just not. They're not even going to place themselves in that type of environment. So if you're allowing all of these things that are happening, you are keeping yourself from your dream team member because they're just not going to accept that type of behavior. Neither are elevated clients. So accountability is really important, and it is one of the most difficult things. I personally struggle with accountability all of the time. It is so hard to hold my team up to the standards that are expected because I love them and I don't want to hurt their feelings. But when we're talking about holding your team accountable, there's a couple reasons why. One, if you aren't holding your team accountable, you have a 43% higher chance of turnover. Yes, that's 43%. That is a high number. And when we don't have accountability, it fails to create a culture and a culture of accountability. That means your team actually holds themselves accountable and they hold their team members accountable as well. Lack of accountability leads to inefficiency. It leads to demotivated employees. It leads to low company morale. It leads to high employee turnover. Yes, it does. And it leads to lack of trust and unproductive work performance. I know I've talked about the Bad Apple study on one of my previous podcasts, but there was a study done. It's called the Bad Apple study. Go ahead and Google it. It's really interesting. And they did a study and they placed a bad apple in different work environments. What they found in this study is that having a bad apple, or somebody who isn't held accountable, somebody isn't working to the right standards, will decrease the entire team's productivity by 30 to 40%. That's a lot. That's kind of crazy if you think about it. So if you are kind of like letting your salon be a free-for-all and you're not holding the standards to your business in place with your team, you are losing up to 40% of revenue. So take your gross revenue, add 40%, that's a little bit less than half, and that is the actual revenue your business could be generating if you held your team accountable. I'm going to tell you from personal experience, I was a leader who didn't hold anyone accountable. And I can honestly tell you that now that I hold my team accountable to my best ability, of course, I don't really have to ask them to do anything. They all clean up after themselves. They clean their stations. I ask them to do something once. I don't really have to repeat myself. They really respect me. The respect is at such a high level compared to when I just kind of let things slide and didn't really want to have difficult conversations. And the reason why, and this goes for everyone listening to this podcast, is accepted behavior is always produced. Accepted behavior is always produced. So if you don't accept certain behaviors, that behavior will not happen, because people want to work for you and they want to abide by the systems and structures and the responsibility you have in place. And if they know that it's a non-negotiable, a real non-negotiable with consequences, they won't do it, or they'll do it once and it won't happen again. So accountability is so important. So here are a couple things that you can do if you are struggling with accountability inside of your business. You can start with today, and you can start shifting this thing that needs to be refined inside of your business and salon. So number one, you want to set clear expectations and goals. So many salon owners don't have clear expectations. They don't have clear instructions. They don't have clear guidelines of how things are supposed to be handled inside of their business. Client experience, checking out, being late, all the things that really are important to having a thriving business. Are you clear with those expectations, and are you clear with goals? So you want to take the first step in resolving lack of accountability by taking personal responsibility and really setting those expectations with your team. So all of your employees should understand their roles. So you should have a role description for each position inside of your salon. They should understand their responsibilities that comes to client experience, handling clients, cleaning duties, booking appointments, anything that role requires. It should be clearly documented and it should be given to the person in that role. And you should have clear roles for your assistant position and your salon coordinator position, just so people know what is expected of them. And to help everyone see exactly what they're accountable for, you can consider using something like a project manager. We use Google Doc. We love Asana for a project manager, and this helps us track things. It helps us communicate back and forth with our team. It's really great. You can utilize this app and you can have all of your job descriptions in this place so nobody gets confused on what their role inside of your business is. Employees understand the standards and quality of work service. So this is really important as well. If somebody doesn't understand what's expected, then they're never going to achieve what you're looking for. So really make sure not only that you actually give them a document, but go over it and go over every single section, or have a video that goes over every single section, so that way you can clearly communicate all of the things. Number two, and this is the most important, is personal responsibility. Are you holding yourself accountable to all of the things that you're holding your team accountable for? In order for your team to uphold your standards, you first as a leader has to be the one to set the example. It's like having children. You can tell your children not to do something, but they're only going to mimic and do exactly what you do because you're the one who sets the example. So you have to look at yourself, you have to hold yourself accountable, you have to take absolute 100% personal responsibility to really ensure that you are doing all of the things that you're asking of your team. Now, this doesn't mean like you have to take on roles and responsibilities that aren't a part of your personal role description, but you do have to follow all of the rules. If you have guidelines on dressing properly, then you should be dressing properly. If you have guidelines on customer service experience, then you should be following the same customer service experiences. You really do need to hold yourself really accountable for everything that's happening inside of your business because you're the one who is going to set the standard. Everyone is going to look to you because you are the leader. Number 3, you need to have difficult conversations with employees. And this is one of the hardest parts of building a culture of accountability because it is so difficult. Handing out consequences to employees is part of being a leader. You have to have consequences to negative actions inside of your business. So what is that for you? What are your guidelines and rules? What are the standards you have for consequences? Do you do performance reviews? Do you do meetings? Do you give regular feedback? Do you have disciplinary actions? These are things that you really need to nail down because these are things that are all going to align to your culture and all going to align to holding your team accountable. Next, you want to make sure that you really do act promptly. And when it comes to having difficult conversations with employees, the sooner you provide feedback, the better. And this helps employees recognize the problem quickly and avoids reinforcement and lack of accountability. So if you see somebody do something that goes against your guidelines, of course, don't call them out on the salon floor. Make sure you pull them aside and have a conversation with them. We have a tendency to want to run away as salon owners or deal with things later because we are in a reactive state. When that is the case, you really need to attend to the conversation immediately. And that is going to make sure that things are handled in a proper way, that things are handled in a timely way, and it's going to keep your team accountable. And if it's in the moment, then it has more impact. I'm going to say that again. If it's in the moment, then it has more impact. So having those conversations at the right time, in the right place, in the right way, in the right moment are also important. You also want to collaborate and listen to your employees. We do a stylist survey all of the time. We collect information. We ask for feedback. It's anonymous. If stylists feel the need to give some negative feedback, we don't know who it is because this allows us to get true answers and honest opinions, which is something that is so important to refine your business as a leader. So really make sure while accountability also is important for your team, it's also important for you. So you want to make sure that you ask your team for feedback. You ask how they feel the team works together. You give them the opportunity to give you some insight on what their experience is like so you can make changes and you can hold the team accountable from the team's point of view, hold the team accountable from the team's point of view when it comes to you, and just get some insight on what's really happening in your business. So I think that surveys and getting stylist feedback is so important. Okay, I hope today's podcast was helpful. I hope you will give accountability a second chance if it's not something that you are currently utilizing inside of your business. Really make sure that you really dive in and understand that accountability is a really, really important part of your business success. Okay, thanks for listening.